Are you ready for a reboot? Welcome to the Sheila Mack Show, reality at its finest. History reminds us those hit hardest often become the change makers. This year, we've all hit crazy economic, social, and emotional rock bottoms. We all get knocked down. Something hits globally, locally, personally. It affects our health, finances, our relationships. We have to recreate a business or career. Each show, Sheila and her special guest will be sharing their reboot stories, guiding you with real solutions to upgrade and up-level emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually, and financially. Here on NBC's KCAA Radio. If you're ready to pull yourself up by the bootstraps and bra straps, enjoy a listen. Here's Sheila.
If you are just tuning in, welcome to the Sheila Mack Show. This is Sheila Mack, your host, and you are tuning in to NBC's Sheila Mack Show right here on KCAA Radio, the station that leaves no listener behind. I'm your host, Sheila Mack, and today I'd like to give a special thank you and shout out to Mel Science for today's episode sponsorship. Now, this episode is all about parenting and education for our children. So one of the things that I loved about Mel Science is that Mel Science is a subscription service that offers monthly science boxes which combine hands-on experiments with VR and AR technology to engage kids in studying science. They are breaking the stereotype that science is boring, difficult, and only for certain types of people. Mel Science strives to make serious science accessible, interesting, and cool for all. So now, personally, I actually did order and have two different science kits that we got to learn with at home. And I was really impressed. Now, I have raised 6 children of my own, and I also was a Montessori teacher for many years. I do highly recommend this program, and I only wish that I knew about Mel Science when my little ones that are now grown were little, so this is now for grandchildren. So Mel Kids is a program that's available for children ages 5 to 9 plus. They have 18 STEM do-it-yourself projects, new topics every month delivered to your door, yet it's not, parents, don't worry, it is not do-it-yourself. It is actually augmented reality science lessons free in the Mel Kids app, and there's free online lessons with professional science teachers. Your children will be learning through story time, storytelling, and it'll be fun. So that's what I love the most about it. Now, as your children progress, there is Mel Physics, and that's for ages 8 to 14. There's 18 exciting physics sets, 2 to 3 new experiments in each box with a new physics topic every month. Free VR lessons in the Mel VR app that takes learning to a whole new level, and a free online lesson with a professional science teacher or teachers. And then as you move on, Mel Chemistry is for ages 10 to 16 plus. There's a free starter kit with a free VR headset that comes with your first box, and it is a monthly prepaid subscription. There are 24 chemistry sets, free VR lessons in the Mel Chemistry app, and 2 to 3 new experiments on a new chemistry topic every month. So you can, no matter what your child's age is, you can start plugging science into your routine. If you are homeschooling right now, I can't recommend this enough for homeschooling parents. And also, this is a wonderful gift, grandparents. If you want to give a gift that keeps giving every month, and will bring so much education to your child, this is something I do highly recommend. Now, if you would like to order, you can go to melscience.com. And with that, right now, anybody tuning in, just use the code Sheila, capital S, all caps, SHEILA, and you will receive 60% off your first month of the Mel Science. And for those tuning in, this is a special episode. So today we have an author that writes books about entrepreneurship, and we'll be learning more about how to educate our children in entrepreneurship. And later on in the show, I will share about the Mel Science giveaway, so your children and family will have the option of winning a Mel Science kit as well. All right, so tune in for that, and now we're going to get started. Today, we have a very special guest. We have Timothy Bauer. He is the author and illustrator of many children's books, including Lucas the Dinosaur Entrepreneur, Billy the Dragon, and Harper Hears No, and a whole bunch more. He is the founder of Dinosaur House, a company that makes kids' books for entrepreneurs. He also hosts a variety of podcasts such as The Literacy Advocate, B2B Growth, The Purpose-Driven Entrepreneur, Writing Better, and the Up-and-Coming Illustrator. Timmy's contributing writer-artist for the Children's Writers Guild magazine. While the kids' books author career was taking off, Timmy was also a Disney actor. I love it.
Man, you're reading the whole thing.
Yes, and Timmy's dream is to make books that ignite a love for reading in kids while inspiring them to think about grown-up topics like entrepreneurship, finance, and personal values. Outstanding. Well, welcome to the show, Timmy.
Thank you so much for having me, Sheila. I'm excited to talk to you.
Now, this show actually started off when I was interviewed by someone else on this network, and that was about my best-selling book, Bootstraps and Bra Straps, the formula to go from rock bottom back into action in any situation. And this last 12 months, globally, we have had every situation show up. And so I like to have, maybe if you could share to the listeners a time in your business or personal life where you hit a tough situation and how you got back on track.
Sure. Okay. So I have two that jump out, and I'll just share both of them, and you can tell me which one you find more interesting or which one you'd rather talk about. But two things that have happened. So 2019, I was touring as a kids book author. I've been touring. I decided I wanted to be a kids book author professionally a long time ago. Went out and finally just started in 2014 and have been busting my butt to try to get to a place where I can fully support myself on money that I'm making as a kids book author. It's taken a lot of work. I finally got there in 2019 when I realized, oh, wait a second. If I'm just always traveling and am visiting elementary schools literally every day, I can make a full-time living as a kids book author. So that's what I was doing. I was just making trips all over the US, visiting elementary schools, and I'd have a whole routine that I put together to get parents to notice me and to take an interest and see if they want to buy my books. And it was going really well. I quit my jobs and I was like, yes, this is working. I was so excited. And then surprise, surprise. I mean, COVID hits, and so early 2020, I was on tour. And I was like, that's when we were all kind of like, it was over in China, and we're like, what's going to happen? Is it coming to the US? And nobody really knows for sure. And one of the first groups to react were like schools when it came to guest visitors. All of a sudden, every school is like, no more guest visitors. And so they're just, my tour just gets wiped off the table. And I have to go home with no way of making money. Well, I mean, I went back to my old job and just begged if they could take me back. But yeah, so I spent all of 2020 working at my old job, which I was a writer for a media company, and working on trying to crack the question of like, how can I make money as a kids book author again? Because that's what I love. So that's one. Okay, that's one in the professional life. And then another one that kind of is both the professional life and the personal life is in early 2019. My wife left me. I was married for 6 years. My wife went and took a job on Disney Cruise Line, and a couple months later told me that she didn't want to be married to me anymore. And that was a huge it was a huge shock for me, because man, it's going to be hard to talk about, but if you want to talk about it, I'm a pretty transparent person.
Wow.
Yeah, that was a huge hit. I had no idea that she was so miserable. And I mean, I knew that we had problems, but I had no idea that she was as miserable as she was. And I just, to me, the thought of divorce was next to the thought of death. It was like, yeah, this is one way that my life could end, and then this is the other way that my life could end.
Yes. And there's so many people that have gone through a divorce or had a relationship situation that hit them really hard. And when you go through something like that, it affects every single other area of your life. It's not just your relationship. It affects, because you have common friends, it affects your finances. It affects every single thing. I have a whole chapter on that in my book, and then special gifts for people that are going through that, and free courses and things, because it is such a tough journey. And sometimes, for whatever reason, one person or the other isn't aligned. It's really not a representation of you or that other person. It just is what it is. And when you get to the point where you're able to know that something better will show up that's more aligned for you, that's okay. But it takes a while. How long did it take you to rebuild after going through that process?
Yeah. So it was an interesting time, because from 2014 to 2018, I'm just busting my butt trying to figure out how to make being a kids book author a full-time thing. I'm working for Disney as a performer all through this time. And I just keep hitting these like little wins where it's like, oh, I went and I toured this area, and oh, if I line up my tour dates with their book fairs, I make more money that way, and just like just discovering hacks, that worked. But then in 2019, she had left. And at first it was just, she was leaving to go take a job that would have had her traveling, and we would have seen each other, weekly, but just a couple of days a week. But all that time away, I fill the time with traveling. And all of a sudden I get discovered by a little network of schools in Miami, and they just start telling all their principals about all the principals in that network about me. And it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So and right around that same time is when she told me that she didn't want to be married to me anymore. So I am simultaneously experiencing this soaring off of my entrepreneurial self into success, while personally I feel like I am shattered. And it was just a weird time, because I'm literally like going into elementary schools to perform and read for the kids and, do all the stuff that I do at the schools. And then as soon as I come away from that, I'm basically a crying, shattered mess.
Wow.
Yeah.
That
It was a dark time.
sounds to me like that was your therapy. That was a lot of us are guilty. I know I was too, of work therapy, or where you can put all your efforts and energy into something where you don't have to think about what else is going on. And you don't have to grieve over whatever. You can just focus on the good and helping others. And that's beautiful. And then you have your time to heal when you're not doing that. And it's like, it gives you little breaks from the healing process.
Yeah. I would say for me, it was more a distraction than it was therapy. But one thing that was nice is that all the touring was constantly putting me in different locations. And there was one tour that I did where I toured Arkansas, and I just made a point that after every school visit, I would go off into nature and just pray. And oh my gosh, I spent so many days climbing mountains and crying and talking to God.
Nice. Yes. And that, we all need that in our life, and that's okay. I think that for those listening in, if you have gone through a tough situation or are currently going through a tough situation, let that be okay. That time and space, sometimes going in nature or finding whatever that is for you, whether it's yoga, nature, singing, whatever, and have that time to process, to heal, and also to think about your next steps. Because a lot of times when we're in a place of hurt or we want to be distracted, we may overspend, or we may make decisions that are based on our emotions versus based on the decisions that we really need to make that make sense. So
I would say I made a lot of decisions based on emotions.
Yes.
In 2019, I was making a lot of money and being broke the whole time.
Yes, that happens. And it doesn't matter if you're a billionaire. This happens to anybody going through a situation like that. It's the same story.
Yeah.
It's a universal thing.
and I would say I would put a caveat around making a lot of money. I guess what I mean by that is it was becoming the most well-paid job that I've ever had. So this may surprise some folks. Disney does not pay very well its performers. So please don't think that I was making a lot of money. But it was becoming the most well-paid job that I'd ever had. And I was able to like eat more than ramen and eggs, which is what I'd mostly been surviving on.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yes.
But also have money for plenty of bad decisions.
Right.
I drank a lot of alcohol in 2019. There's this Bible verse. I'm a Christian, by the way, so you're probably going to hear this in the conversation quite a bit. But I was going through just a crazy up and down emotions and spirituality and everything. There's this Bible verse, and I would offend my Christian friends whenever I would share it, but it says, give wine to the one who is sorrowing and strong drink to the one who feels ready to die. And I would say, hey, I'm just applying the Bible to my life right now.
Good use of it. Now that can be applied to anything. And when you think about any religious studies, we can apply it to our own, what serves us. But I know that you knew inside and your friends knew, and you have a knowing that it's like, okay, but yeah, really. And it's really not the case. But
yeah, I knew it needed. I knew that plenty of the decisions that I was making weren't healthy, but I was in such a place emotionally. I don't know too much about your personal life, Sheila, and I can't wait to dig into it with you on the Purpose-Driven Entrepreneur. But I would assume that you've gone through some serious pain in your life if this is the show that you've decided to make. Mm-hmm. And you can probably remember there's no, well, I don't want to assume what it was like for you, but what it was like for me was there was no room for making wise decisions. Yeah. There was room for surviving mm-hmm. and just trying to address the pain. And then sometimes just trying to feel the pain, because there was a good while where I just felt like I was going numb.
Very, very normal and very much a part of that process, the grieving process, very much so. And the reason I wrote the book and the reason I have this show is to help people when they're going through those points in life, whether it's divorce, loss of a loved one, dealing with a career switch or shift like we've all had this last year, whatever it is, reinventing yourself, where you have to walk down a different road and go through this process alone. And I don't want people to feel alone, and that there are so many ways to get back on track. So like I created this method that I use to get myself back on track when my house burned down. In 2017, the Ventura fires, and I had just finished traveling for 7 years straight, had a great time, and did a whole bunch of personal development fun and worked on the road doing events, and then lost my house, my cat, and my car all in a few days.
Wow.
And it was, what do I do? And what I did to get back on track was I sat down and I wrote out the formula of what I always do. And it was kind of what I would want to tell my best friend going through something.
Oh man, that yeah. That reminds me of something that I heard when I was going through this, which was and I never heard. I think I probably heard it before, but I had never done it before.
Mhm.
And there's this podcast that I was listening to where the guys are at one point they were talking about an exercise that you can go through if you have a lot of self-doubt, or if you just think very low of yourself. And it's, you look in the mirror and you talk to yourself like you're not you. Like you talk to yourself like you're your friend. And so you don't use I language, you use you language. Like I literally look at myself. It sounds so weird. And for me, it was just the strangest thing in the world to start with. But I would look at myself in the mirror and I would just be like, okay, Timmy, and then I would just start talking.
Nice.
And at first it felt so weird, but it was surprisingly healing.
Wow, listeners, that is a beautiful application. If you know, for yourself or someone going through something, to go to the mirror and love yourself and look at yourself as if you are your best friend or your closest sister, parent, whatever, and start giving yourself the advice you need to hear and the love in a beautiful way. I think a lot of times we have a lot of negative self-talk that happens, that may be a voice from maybe a parent or a teacher or something from the past, that hopefully your amazing books erase that or stop that in their tracks so that we don't continue that pattern. But it does tend to happen. And you hear these other voices and it's like, well, that's not, I would never speak that way to my best friend. Wait a minute.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm working on a kid's book right now called it's called A Picture Book About Rejection. And it's inspired by my experience. And it's literally meant to try to get across to a kid the things that I needed to tell myself when I was going through this. And also the exercise of looking at yourself in the mirror. And I say in the book, I'm like, I know this sounds super weird. It was really weird when I did it.
That is so beautiful. And now, do you have children?
No. And I actually don't know that I ever plan on having kids. But for whatever reason, ever since I was a kid, I knew that I wanted to be a kid's book author.
Wow. Yes, because I can just totally feel how good you are with kids, and looking at some of the books that you wrote. I have 6 children. They're all grown. I adopted 3 are mine. They're all mine, right? And those books are exactly what's needed and what I would want my children to read.
What made you decide to adopt?
That's a good question. So for me, I was in a very abusive situation growing up, and my mother told me to leave home because it was so dangerous, so much, broken bones and terrible things. So I left. They went from home to home, different relatives my mother was staying with. And so I left, and I was homeless from 10 to 13 and a half. Then I found foster care. I emancipated at 15. I became a mentor. I ran gift stores that created training programs for kids in foster care. And when I had my first child, I was told I couldn't have any more. And so I wanted more. And so then I did foster to adopt and had 3. Then awesome. How interesting these things, this was a soul contract, a God-guided thing, perhaps, that then I had my last 2 birth children that were supposed to be impossible. And so that happened. And it's something that's always been in my heart to do. My daughter actually is a social worker with a girls' home now that helps young teenage girls that have babies already. And she's their counselor, and she's only in her early 20s. And so it's something that in our family is just part of what we do to give back. And it's really important to us.
I love it. I don't know if I will adopt, but I have said before, when people have asked me if I plan on having kids, I'm like, well, there's already a lot of kids in the world. I don't know that I really need to add any more. And for whatever reason, it's offensive to people, but to me, it just seems kind of logical.
Yes. And it's funny because I have, like, all these kids that I have, they're so diverse and different, the little rainbow of children that I have. And they're a lot of them are kind of leaning toward that. And I say, whatever form that takes in your life, whether you are adopting, fostering, just through your books, helping with other children, it's whatever comes to you that's right will be right. And it will be perfect, and it will show up in perfect time. It may change. And whatever it is, like I say, as I haven't had any grandchildren, they're all grown. I'm like, hey, what's up? But it's okay. However they show up, it's all good. And if they don't, that's okay, because there's so many to help and be involved with on this planet. And it really is. Those children that I fostered to adopt are the same as my children. As far, I really believe it was a guided situation. It was beyond, it was something that was in the plan.
Yeah. I love it. I mean, again, as a Christian, that I just believe that that's the heart of God, that he wants, his heart is for adoption. So whatever I do with my life, whether I adopt myself or I just do something to impact the kids that are in the world right now that don't have parents, I just believe that there's not really a higher mission that somebody could devote their life to.
Yes. Now, do you have any books in the works or ways that you're helping children as far as dealing with crazy COVID?
I thought about it. I actually submitted one to an agent, and she said that the thing about COVID is it's evolving so fast that a publisher is not super likely to pick up a book that addresses it in the way that it is right now. So I guess it would have to, that's the thing about COVID. But I mean, there's nothing really stopping me from doing it, except that I have a bunch of other books in the works. But I did tentatively write one out that was just like, why do we have to stay home all the time? I thought that'd be a good title for a book, because it's probably how kids are feeling. Depending on where you are. But I wrote it when it was pretty serious quarantine. I'm not sure where you're located, Sheila. I'm in Florida, where we basically treat the disease like it doesn't exist.
Right. Yes. And I know I have a couple of homes. So one's in California, which is very strict, and the other is in Las Vegas, which is less strict. But the schools are mostly still closed unless some private schools are allowed to be open. It's kind of weird. So there are a lot of children that don't get a lot of outside. You don't get to go out and play. You don't get to do much. And it's real. I think it's really strict. When I go home to California, it's ridiculous. It is so strict, and it's hard on the kids. It's hard on everyone. The children feel this. They feel it. And I feel that as parents, adults, people in children's lives, that the energy we bring, how we show up, just think about if you're on a plane and the stewardess looks scared, you're going to be scared.
Yeah.
Even if you're an adult. This is just the truth, right? So I think the same thing, we need to really show up in strength, in agreement. If you're, partners, married, co-parenting, however you're doing that, maybe you have relatives that agree differently, have an agreement, a discussion about what gets talked about around the kids or how things are presented, so you're on a common ground, so the children stay grounded and they feel safe. They can have peace. And I think learning is so much easier for kids when they feel safe. And there's some kind of, even if we don't love routines, there's some kind of a structure of knowing there's a boundary and things are going to be okay. And yes, I think it makes a big difference.
If you are just tuning in, this is NBC Sheila Mack Show here on KCAA Radio, the station that leaves no listener behind. I'm your host, Sheila Mack, and again, I wanted to give a special thanks and shout out to MelScience.com, and they are the sponsors of this show's episode. And today we have a special where we are focused on parenting and helping our children learn. So this is the special drumroll part of the episode where we have a giveaway thanks to MelScience.com. And just a little bit more about Mel Science. They have science kits that are interactive with professional science teachers online, and kits that come to your house on a subscription every month. They have different programs for different ages. So Mel Kids is ages 5 to 9. Then you move up into Mel Physics, ages 8 to 14. And then you get into Mel Chemistry, which is ages 10 to 16 years old, and it's just really an incredible program. As a former teacher and parent of 6 now grown children looking at grandparenting next, I highly recommend this program. So Mel Science is a subscription service again that offers monthly science boxes which combine hands-on experiments with VR and AR technologies to engage kids in studying science. They are breaking the stereotype that science is boring, difficult, and only for certain types of people. Mel Science helps nurture children's natural interest in science by giving them fun, hands-on experiments to engage, serious, detailed explanations to learn, VR and AR technologies to dive deeper. And again, as a former Montessori then Waldorf teacher and parent of 6 now grown children, I highly recommend this Mel Science program. Whether you're homeschooling, your children are at school, and you want to bring more science into their world, you can plug them in at any age and get started. And also grandparents, this is a great gift. Every month you can keep subscribing and giving to your children, grandchildren, a gift that will expand their learning and fun time. So now our giveaway. I am going to ask a question about science. So, my question of the day. Holy smokes, what am I going to ask about science? And my question is, are there other universes? That's right. Are there other universes? That is my science question for today. And to win this giveaway, you just need to answer this question. You can call it into the station here, or you can also tune into my YouTube channel at Sheila Mac Show and put your comments in. And the question again is, are there other universes? The question of the day, and I will be selecting a winner who answers that question correctly, and the winner will receive a free 3-month subscription to Mel Science. And of course, I will need your contact information. We'll then connect with shipping details, and we will get you the product that you're interested in for your kids' age level. So if you want the kids, the physics, or the chemistry, just let us know. And again, the website to go to if you'd like to order a Mel Science kit or get started today is melscience.com. And I also have a special for those ordering, and that is all caps Sheila, Sheila, and that will get you 60% off your first month's order. And I hope to hear your answers about the universe. And again, the winner will be chosen, and you will receive a 3-month subscription once you write in or call in with your questions to the station.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's affected so many families differently. So you've got families that are now stuck together that are realizing how wonderful it is to spend so much time together. And then you got families that are now stuck together that are uncovering all the problems that they're having with each other. Yeah. And fortunately for me, I haven't really had too much of that. The people that I've been stuck with for most of this have been people that I've loved hanging out with. But it's got to be really hard if you are stuck with people that you wish you didn't have to be so stuck with.
Exactly. One of the things I like to share on my show is about 211. Have you heard of the 211?
No.
Okay, so this is really important, and this isn't a sponsored thing, but this is something I always share, and that's 211 is available in every state in the United States and every province in Canada. And if you dial it or Google it, you will find a list of help and resources, whether that's getting food on the table, helping to get a job, help for veterans, seniors, help with childcare, lots of mental health help. And you talk about living, what brought that to mind was when you talk about living in a home that maybe isn't safe, or where a situation isn't right, or somebody is dealing with an addiction, or there's an abusive situation going on. That's where you can get free help in any state or province in Canada or state in the United States. And I just feel really guided to share that, because that's something, just to post that in your work groups. If you run Zooms, share it at work. If you actually go to a physical job again, or with other parents, this is important. A lot of times people are afraid to ask for help when they need it. They won't admit it maybe to their friends. They want to save face, but maybe they really need the help this year. And that's okay. So if you do need help, ask for help when you need it, or share that with someone that comes to you. Maybe you can't help them, but just giving them that information could make all the difference this year.
Yeah, I agree. And I think people need community, and it's really hard to have community when there's a global pandemic, but we need it to handle difficult problems. I mean, for me personally, when I was going through the divorce, I needed to be able to break down and cry in front of people. If I didn't have that, I don't know that I would be okay now.
Right. Yes. Now that brings us back to church, and whatever religion you are, if you're listening in or not, that's okay. But there's something about community, whether it's a church or whatever you belong to, that a lot of our communities are closed down right now. Churches, do you have churches open in Florida?
Yeah, we have churches open in Florida, and they all have different, I don't know what the current restrictions are. There's a lot of churches that are closed, and there's a few that are open, and they're open with restrictions. We've been mostly doing church at our house. But if I wasn't in a house full of people that wanted to do church at the house, I'd personally be like, okay, well, COVID aside, I need community.
Yes, in a lot of different places. I had favorite, I actually owned a church, so I have a lot going on in my life, but I also have favorite yoga studios and favorite other people's, places of worship that we would all go together in California, because it's very diverse there, and they're closed down for good because of the economy. And so it's really hard, because when you think about going through grieving, going through a divorce, anything you're going through, the healing process is in those steps, those traditions, the faith traditions of your family, of your friends, having them close together. It really helps. Now, for my family and I, we lost my youngest son. He was 22, and he had a heart condition called Wolff-Parkinson-White syndrome. He passed away December 21st, 2019.
Oh, wow.
That was like, whew, COVID's nothing. That for our family, that was the hardest thing in our lives. And going through that, our having a community and a place to pray, and having people around us, surrounding us to hold us through that time, and even people sending prayers and intentions and blessings and all that, I really believe that we felt it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we felt it. And it was like when we couldn't walk, it carried us through. And yep. I believe that. And now maybe you don't believe in anything and you're listening in, and this isn't a religious show, but
it can be.
Scientifically now, they have studies that show, my gosh, they put intention on water or different things across, and you'll see that the structure changes. The molecular structure of water will change when you put peace and love and different things across. And there's all these scientific studies on prayer and meditation and how these things work for people and help. So we need that more than ever in this time where we have so much that's uncertain.
Yeah. For me personally, I just found, I was touring in Arkansas, and a friend of mine, she just started taking me to different churches on Sundays because I spent 5 weeks there. And so this was at a point where my heart was pretty numb. I just couldn't really feel any. I was starting to get to a place where I couldn't feel anything. So I had been drinking a lot. The reason I started drinking so much was to help me just open up, because you drink enough alcohol and it's just gonna come out of you, all your feelings. And so that's what I was doing at first. And then I was at a point where I was drinking so much and still going numb. And then I started doing other stuff. I would go to the gym and I would go, I'm going to work out until I can't move anymore. Just literally trying to hurt myself, so that I would be in pain, so that I would feel the sensation of feeling things. This sounds so, I don't know. I think because I'm a 3, I like hear myself talking right now and I'm like, you sound like a whiny little, and we're on the air, so I can't finish that sentence.
You're so spot on, because everybody has, like, I would say 99.9% of the people I've worked with, and even myself going through my own divorce at one point years ago. Yeah. I might have done different things. I didn't really drink, but
I'm not advocating for alcohol, except I kind of, in a joking way, am pointing to the fact that it was part of the story. It was part of the story. But what was so crazy, where I was going with this is, so I'm in church, I would pray, there'd be, people worshiping around me, and then I would just break down and start crying. And I would start crying, and then I would start sobbing. And I would just be like bent over and sobbing, and I'm going to get emotional thinking about it now. And the reason that it was so emotional for me is because when someone divorces you, they're not just saying like, hey, you know what? I think we should go separate ways. Like, there might be some divorces that go that way, but not this one. It was, I don't want you anymore, kind of thing. And just the feeling of not being wanted and not being enough, and not feeling like you're worthy of anything. Not feeling like someone will someone ever want me again? This sounds so petty to say, but in that moment, I did. I don't just want to bash her. That my goal is not to get on here and bash her. But in a very low place, feeling unworthy, and not. I remember thinking like, I just wasn't made right. I just wasn't made the right way, because I wasn't made to be wanted. Like, whatever makes a person wanted, I wasn't put together that way. And just in church, worship going on all around me, I'm crying, and I'm just hearing the Lord saying to me, I like the way that I made you. And I would just break down sobbing.
Yeah.
And what's cool is when you're in a church and you break down sobbing, everybody just puts their hands on you.
Right.
So they don't think that you're a weirdo.
Right. And, in society, we kind of tend to like have these crazy rules that it's not okay to have our emotions. Or, I mean, after losing my son, my daughter was like, gosh, my friends were upset with me, and because I was still grieving a month later. And it's like, hello, well, that's just normal. And they haven't had that experience. Her younger friends didn't lose a loved one so close. So they don't have something to really.
People were getting on your case for grieving a month later.
Yeah. And I was like, what?
A literal month?
Literally. And it changed. It was like, oh, wow, wait a minute. And it made her reassess her friendship circles a little bit, and realize some friends are, friends you work with that maybe you go have fun with, but they're not really aligned on the value. And it was probably such a good thing to happen at a young age versus later, but that will happen. And so when you find your peer group and your friends, and you're in a church or wherever you're at, and you find people that support you, and that means that they give you tough love sometimes when they need to just, hold you and put their hands on you, that's one thing, but they'll also say, okay, now I'm going to help you out. Or when they see.
All right, welcome to a quick talk on education strategy today. Now, there's something about education strategy today that is so important. Parents listening in, this is going to speak to you. Grandparents, this is also for you. Education happens more in the home and in the community than in the classroom so many times. And especially today where so many people don't even have a choice. They're having to homeschool, or they've chosen to homeschool due to our pandemic. So anyway, education today, one of the things that you can do as the parent leader in the home for your children or children in your life is to be the leader. So one of my mantras is I'm a lifetime learner and a wisdom earner. And that means that I am continually learning new things. And I do that in front of my now grown children. I have 6 beautiful children. And now that they're all grown, they are all still lifelong learners. It started at a really early age. So one of the things we did is we created a ritual at home when the children were very young, where we always had reading together. We had a reading time before bedtime. It started with before the terrible twos, even, when they were babies, but by the terrible twos, it was the way to calm the children. So we would have a reading time, a story time. We would do our faith practice, and then it would be bedtime. And it was that calming ritual that happened every evening. Later on, when I traveled and the children weren't with me, we would actually get on a call. We didn't have Skype and Zoom back then. We would get on a call and we would actually still read or talk about the day, and they would read to me if I didn't have whatever book we were reading with me, and we would have that family time. So there was a connection with learning and reading and story time and family time, and that bond, it brought something where learning became part of the family activity. It was a sense of home and peace, and I think that made a big difference for my family. And my children, although they chose to study different things and have completely different interests, I have this diverse little group of 6 children of mine, 3 adopted, 3 from birth, but they're all mine. And we're a beautiful, fun family. But reading for every single one is important to them, and learning and applying what they learn, and discussion. So we talked about things. We would talk about what's happening in school related to the stories we read, or what's happening at work now that they're older. And, we still call in and have our time in the evenings, even now that they're all grown. So that's really important.
You'll always be my baby, parenting teenage and adult children. My daughter and youngest son are only a year and a half apart, so they grew up together. They are best friends and support each other in everything, even getting into trouble together. For her last 2 years of high school, my daughter and son wanted to go to a charter school I had campaigned for and helped open. The school focused on what she and her brother wanted to do for their careers. My daughter had already decided that she would study psychology. She was a straight A student with above a 4.0 grade point average and a great track record. Although my son was not as decided on his major, the school and area seemed to be a great fit. So after my ex and I got divorced, we packed up our belongings and moved to a new city for a fresh start. Whether because of starting that new school and being around different kids, stress about the move and family reorganization, peer pressure, or just teenagers making bad decisions, both of my kids got caught smoking marijuana. Worse, my daughter was driving under the influence of marijuana when they were pulled over, so a police report was filed too. Getting that phone call was my parenting rock bottom. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I don't believe in using mind-altering substances. I'm aware that these things go on, but I would prefer my kids talk to me about it and not get into a car, because that's dangerous. They could have killed someone else or themselves. We called a family meeting, something we had done since the children were little. We went around the table and each of us had a chance to share our feelings and give input to the situation. My daughter went first, as the driver, and then my son. I asked for their side of the story. I went last and shared how scary it was as a mom to receive a call from the police. Then I said, "You have a choice. I will pay for you to go to boarding school, and it will be a strict school because I will not have you staying in this environment. You're not making good choices, and you need more supervision than I thought. Or you can go on the Tony Robbins tour with me, traveling around the country to attend motivational seminars." My daughter said, "Mom, you can't afford that." "You know what?" I replied. "I can't afford to bury you." The kids chose to go on the tour, and that decision changed my children's entire future. Pushing the boundaries. I don't care how perfect you are or think you are. As a parent, kids at a certain phase are going to test the boundaries. When my children got in trouble, I chose to do everything I could while it was a relatively small infraction, before they did anything bigger that could risk their health, well-being, and lives. Most of the time, choices have a natural consequence in life, and those consequences will teach a lesson. It's a learning experience while the consequences are still small. They didn't crash a car, get into hard drugs, go bankrupt, or anything else that would make their lives a lot more difficult later. It's better to have those small consequences earlier, which may still hurt, but which will lead to personal responsibility, versus the later consequences that can be really serious and sad. Life is a strict teacher. It says, if you do that, this is what's going to happen, and it's going to hurt. As a parent, you don't have to scold. You can just say, "I hope you don't do that because I don't want to see you get hurt." Of course, not everybody can quit their job and travel the world. I was fortunate to have a business I could run while traveling. But every parent can be present for their children as much as they are able to, while helping those children, no matter how old they are, learn to see the different options they have. When children are younger, they need a lot of boundaries. Teenagers and young adults push those boundaries so that they become independent adults. They can start setting boundaries of their own. A normal, healthy part of the teenage to adult transition is for them to push back and say, "I want space. I want to be on my own a little more. I want to make my own decisions." There's a dance of give and take that has to happen. As a parent, you're starting to let go. You're figuring out where those boundaries are. The level of responsibility young adults have shifts, and every month, every year, it accelerates. I was painfully aware of that once my children turned 18. I couldn't make them do anything. They were going to choose what to do on their own. The best thing I could do, the best thing any parent can do, is to set them up to make decisions that give them the best possible outcomes in life, and then let them go, but be there to catch them when they fall now and then. Parenting has a natural goal of making sure your children grow up to become productive members of society who fulfill their own talents and goals, even if that looks completely different from what you pictured for your kid. They deserve the freedom to try. Maybe that looks like not going to university right away after graduating from high school. Maybe they're going to go to community college and test out different fields to see what fits best. We have to let them figure it out so they can find their own path. We can't control how happy they're going to be in life, how successful they'll be, or what kind of life they want to live. All we can do is model our best version of happiness, of success, and of living life, and let them know that we'll always be there for them. We'll always love them. Parenting teenagers. When my youngest son was a teenager, I learned to never tell him not to do something. The minute I did, he would go do it, and he'd do it twice as much as he ever would have if I hadn't told him not to do it in the first place. My daughter, on the other hand, would respect those boundaries and have very adult conversations with me about what was going on and why I was asking her not to do something. Thank you for tuning in to the Sheila Mack Show, reality at its finest, where we share real situations with real solutions to help you rebuild, reinvent, and reboot your life on your terms. I'm your host, Sheila Mack. I'm giving you some homework. Grab a copy of my bestseller, Bootstraps and Bra Straps, to learn the formula to go from rock bottom and back into action in any situation.